The next slide. First, I wanted to acknowledge the pain and suffering companies, employees, and suppliers are experiencing at the moment. Reduced staffing, challenging work from home policies, decreased demand, factory layout changes related to social distancing, and deep economic uncertainty wreak havoc on income statement and emotions. Add in the cost of personal protective equipment needs for employees, the redesign of customer-facing environment, increased signage, change to workflow, pricing pressures upstream. It's easy to see why companies want to pass on cost increase to their customers. For some, it may be a matter of survival. So are suppliers passing on COVID-19 related price increase just because they can? Nearly every cycle, some business condition creates cost challenges. For example, whether it spikes in precious metals like gold and silver, oil price that rush past $100 per barrel, industry-wide raw material shortage, even the high cost of medical insurance might be the cost. The dear valued customers letter or customer letters I've received over the years are largely simple. They announce a price increase, you fill in the blank about the situation, causing the price hike, and it says it's outside the supplier's control. It reminds me of the old days when my Happy New Year letter from suppliers contained a calendar and a new price list. Of course, some price increases are valid, and the objective today is to separate facts from fiction. Personally, I like to dig deeper by discussing with our suppliers to understand their challenge. I often agree to price increases if they are justified due to like a material increase or labor. What I resist, however, are hidden prices. The price increases like the one my dentist has squeezed in. So what are the main reasons for the increases this year? Well, as you know, we're still in it. From the beginning of 2020, the COVID-19 is raging around the world, and then from March 2020, many countries entered lockdown. When we entered lockdown, their economic activities were restricted, which also affected the people who work outside. Also, some factories temporarily closed. I don't know if it's the case for you guys, which also caused a large number of containers to be stopped at port. And container shortage have become a serious problem in the logistics industries. It also impacts manufacturers, trading companies, and retail businesses, like we'll see in the upcoming slides. The second reason, well, as the movement of cargo was limited, shipping lines reduced the number of ships to stabilize the cost. And we don't want price increase, so it's a good thing that they tried to do that. However, shipping lines will lose money if they continue to send vessels while they have no cargo. Therefore, they reduce the number of vessels to maintain the ocean freight. Most countries limited economy activities from April until June. From July, we were able to see that world economic activities started to recover. Since COVID-19 started in China, which led them setting COVID-19 plans at an early stage, with an infection rate lower, supposedly, than the other counterparts. I'm just going to let someone in. With the infection rate lower and the support from government. Hi, Adib. Nice seeing you today.
Hi, how you doing? How are you doing? I'm sorry to be late a little bit.
I'm just going to put your mics on mute, okay?
Sure.
All right. So since they had an infection rate lower than other countries and the support from the government funding, well, the Chinese factories were able to recover the production at an early stage. And when the Chinese factories started to produce, it also restarted the exporting activities. This increased exports from China. So it also encouraged other businesses to try to produce in China, which also increased the export from China. So you could see the pattern there. There was a large volume coming in. The fourth reason is the Christmas business impact in North America. Normally, from September, a large volume of cargoes are sent to North America for Christmas businesses, especially from China to North America. We said there's about 900,000 20-foot containers per month that are sent from China to North America only for Christmas business. In addition to this, China has a long vacation called National Day in October, and this led them to try to ship cargo before the holiday starts, and this drastically increases the volume of export from China as well. The reason number five, well, since the shipping lines were reducing the number of vessels and they were not able to collect the empty containers, well, it created a panic. To solve the issue, they tried to reduce the free time and detention period that you could get with a container. For example, some shipping lines were reducing their free time from 2 weeks to a week. And they tried to establish a system to quickly collect the cargo and the containers back, unload the cargo, and then return the containers. But it creates another problem, the lack of manpower. Just like in our factories, at the moment we need to have space and we cannot all be together. Well, because of the pandemic, there was a shortage of manpower. So just imagine when a ship arrives in Vancouver, it has to wait 2 weeks before it can approach the dock. And then the containers remain on the platform waiting to be put on the train for another week almost. So the delivery delay causes price increase and also penalties for some customer who have to deliver according to a schedule of events. The lack of truckers doesn't help also with the return of containers. This increases the traffic in the port and the number of ships and containers. The aftermath? Well, sea shipment costs for North America have increased dramatically. Normal ocean freight to Los Angeles, which is referred as the entrance of Asia, normally costs no more than $2,000 for a 40-foot container. At the moment, it's close to $4,000. So as there's a lack of containers, it is understandable that they increase the ocean freight. So what are the main reasons for the price increases on the goods at the moment? Well, the coronavirus pandemic has led to a considerable impact on global economic activities and on maritime freight. Each of the factors made the situation even worse. Of course, we don't know when we will be at the end of our situation, but as long as the pandemic is not controlled, we will be affected. We're going to take a pause. Do you guys have any questions? I don't see Cynthia in the chat if someone put a question.
No, there is no questions so far.
Anybody would like to add on what has been said so far? If not, I'll keep going. All right, there will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So how to deal with this situation? There are three different ways we could deal with the crisis. The first one is to accept the situation. We have to understand that some suppliers are going to increase their prices and that we don't have much to do about it. These increases may include pandemic-related costs, but suppliers are under significant revenue pressures because of shutdowns and restricted operation. They are trying to gain some relief with higher prices. So based on volume and importance, accept the increase. The second, negotiate. I would ask my large suppliers to justify their price increases, including documentation of higher costs and other economic pressure. Often through this analysis, I gained a better handle on their cost drivers and they understood my company's customer facing pressure. As we learn more about each other's business challenges, there may be opportunities for cost savings for both sides that offset the COVID-19 related price increase. So we should look for those opportunities to cut unnecessary costs. And the third one is to treat it as a temporary change. One can acknowledge that the cost pressure on the supplier by agreeing to an invoice surcharge and not a charge in the unit change in the unit price purchase. The supplier can build a surcharge, I'm sorry, as a separate line item, and it doesn't impact the unit cost, allowing for consistent cost and price analysis. The true unit cost is then used as the basis for the future increases. The true unit cost is essentially obscured. If the situation causing the increase changes, the unit cost is almost never adjusted downward. And it's like the fuel surcharge we saw for shipping companies in the 90s. It has been added for decades now, but was never taken away, even if the situation came back to normal. The last question, how to navigate in an unstable market, especially if your plans for the recovery are likely to be canceled because of these price increases. Well, circumstances unique to your business and supplier relationship will dictate which of the above situations to use. If a supplier, perhaps an important small business under intense pressure, approaches me to accept a pandemic related increase, I am inclined to accept it. In fact, I may actually reach out to some suppliers to broach the subject to make sure they are accurately accounting for their expenses. I would prefer pay a bit more now to keep that supply viable over the long term. In fact, this is tough time for all businesses, including yours. But don't let your guard down when it comes to supplier price increases. The pandemic is not an excuse for higher prices. It is an opportunity to strengthen supplier relationship and meet the uncertainties of the new normal together. Thank you for your time. Now we will pass to the Q&A session, or if you have any comments also related to this situation.
Don't hesitate if you have any question.
Yeah, Hugo, this is Gary from Maghold.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much this slide presentation I should just be able to send to each one of my customers. I've said these exact points. I mean, most of my stuff comes from Vietnam, so I don't have the issue really with China, but shipping in general here at Los Angeles, the port, has been every single thing you said. So I just want to validate that. It's just, and now I think everybody's starting to know it. But when this first started, I was saying this entire presentation almost on every phone call. We haven't, because the shipping increases are taking effect right now as our materials coming on the sea. Well, I did not increase with existing inventory, which I pretty much have gone through. There was a huge surge in magnet request, which is a blessing for all of us, I guess. I'm assuming that's a market-wide trend, receptive going down. But yeah, it was taking longer to get from the port to my warehouse, which is 45 minutes from the port, to get it from. It was getting here quicker from Vietnam. So that is really frustrating because we had the unions here. So we had the union problem on top of the container shortage pile up on top of everything else that you just mentioned. And so that compounded. And last week, I got my material off in a week. That was unbelievable. The containers prior to that were 15 to 18 days releasing back in January. So it did get really good. Last container, which was about 2 weeks ago, that was 7-day turn. So I'm hoping that's going to be the back to more normal for us. I'm not sure. You had mentioned Vancouver is your port, and then rail, so you have a lot of more steps than I do. But yeah, Very, very good presentation. I mean, it's right spot on, and it's so awesome to have someone else let me hear someone else say it for a change.
Uh, Thank you, Gary.
Thank you,
Of course,
Gary.
we're not using the opportunity to back up the price increase. We're not supporting the increases that is on the market. We are facing, just like you guys, the increase. We have no choice to navigate through those price increase. Last year, this time, we were looking on situations how we could recover from the pandemic. We were trying to look in the future, but we never expected that crisis at this point. And of course, it took our plan took a hit at that time because, of course, we need to find solutions. But if we are able to explain it properly, it encourages customers to keep having faith in their supply. So that's why we try to set up this webinar today. Thank you, Gary, for your time. I appreciate your comment. Anybody else would like to share on the topic?
Just it's Brian. Just wondering if you're thinking there might be additional pressures going forward. Obviously, this is pandemic related, but now we got the fallout from, I would say, a lot of government borrowing and so forth. It's just generally creating a lot of inflationary pressures, even in domestic markets, much less the import product. I mean, between that and the fuel costs going up substantially, especially here in Canada, which was over, I think, 35% in the last 3 months. And then you've got potential currency fluctuations, with all this borrowing going on. I'm just wondering how receptive clients are going to be to inflation, that they haven't seen inflation. I mean, if anything, especially in the promotional market, they've seen deflation. And in our primary market, our primary market is printing and signage, once again, they've seen deflationary pressure for years now as competitors kind of scramble to get what they can. So they're not used to seeing anybody ever increase prices on them, with the exception of the typical products they have no choice on, like fuel and food and those sorts of things. So I wonder what your thoughts are as far as additional aspects behind throwing up inflation, and our clients going to buy, if they start seeing inflation, or are they just going to cut back?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. Thank you for sharing. You notice also the same inflation in the construction sector. The timber is so expensive lately that we need to find a different alternative that we were not considering in the past. So it's going to create real trouble. The debt, just the pressure on the government at the moment, the cost that is related to the pandemic. Someone will need to absorb that one day. I was a bit impressed with the first impression from the Promotional Products Association when they did a survey presenting or asking suppliers or distributors about the promotional products. And when they were reaching out to their customers, showing them a price increase, it looks like at the moment the customers are understanding the situation, and they are receiving well the increase. I was surprised to see that. Personally, I don't think this will last when the true cost will be calculated. At the beginning of the webinar, when we realize that as a business owners, we try to do our best to keep our employees, and the manpower is so hard to find, is gonna bring other issues that we're not facing at the moment. So all that, it's cost related. If you want to keep a good employee, and if you want to keep your staff, even if you don't have the workflow for it, it all needs to be calculated. So you're right. We're not at the end of the trouble. We are able to explain at the moment the reason why some increases happen, but we don't see everything also. To give you an example, just to make magnet, like Gary mentioned, the raw material, it's hard to get. Some vinyls, some adhesive that are being brought from other countries, and when the border is closed and you cannot have access to that in truckloads, you need to ship it by air freight. And at the moment, the air freight is getting worse. I never seen delays, especially for a strong rare earth magnet, that long for air freight. So it will be affecting other part of businesses, and inflation is right there. So we have to be very transparent with our customers to explain to them the reality, the challenge that we are facing, and to be able to discuss with them and telling them exactly the truth. And I think that will be the best way to navigate through the situation if we are transparent with each other, and they will understand our challenge, and we will be able to weigh their challenge as well. Anybody else have a question, or Brian, you'd like to add on that?
No, I was just going to say, I guess it's like most inflationary things. As long as you don't see it all sort of strike at once, it's kind of like a frog sitting in boiling water. You know, you don't throw it right into the boiling water. You just continue to sort of turn up the temperature till the frog is cooked, right?
Exactly. I like that illustration.
I was just thinking about frog legs for breakfast now. Thank you.
Do you have a trademark on that one, or I could use it, Brian?
Use it as much as you want.
All right. I'll use it. Anybody else would like to share something? Well, I do appreciate you guys taking the time today. What we wanted to do it was to reach out to explain exactly the situation. So I appreciate you took time to listen to the webinar. I'll pass I'll let Cynthia conclude the session.
Thank you very much, Hugo. Very nice presentation once again. I would like to mention that Hugo prepared the whole presentation with the collaboration of our CEO, Claude Arpin. So thank you, Hugo. You did a great job. Thank you so much once again for attending. That presentation was at eye level. So don't hesitate to contact Hugo if you want a whole strategy for your specific needs or companies or issues. I'm sure you already have his email address or his phone number, but I'm going to put it in the chat room anyway, just to make sure you have it. This webinar is going to be, you're going to be able to share this webinar with your team if you want to, with your clients if you want to. You're going to be able to get it. We're going to send it by email. And as I said, you're going to have it on our website.